The Pelicans aren't betting that Bennedict Mathurin suddenly becomes a superstar. They're betting that a 24-year-old isn't a finished player yet. It's Locked On Pelicans. Let's go.
You are Locked On Pelicans, your daily New Orleans Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome to Locked On Pelicans. I'm your host, Jake Madison. The Pelicans aren't betting that Bennedict Mathurin is a superstar player. You signed him for $8 million. There wasn't a market around the league. They understand that. What they're feeling and hoping here is that Bennedict Mathurin, at just 24 years old and the former number 6 pick in the NBA draft, isn't finished. We talked about him in yesterday's show. He's a straight line, head down, score at the rim kind of guy, draw contact, get to the free throw line, and truthfully doesn't give you, in terms of scoring, much else. He's not a 3-level scorer. He's a 1-level scorer, unless you count the free throw line. He's not a playmaker either. This is someone that just doesn't seem to pass the ball well, does have a pretty high turnover rate for the type of player that he is, and when he does make passes, isn't even really much of a connector either. This is someone, again, who is very singular in what he does. And look, in that one thing, he does it pretty well. But he tends to have some pretty bad live ball turnovers when he's trying to play make for others here. But you know what? We've seen this a little bit before. And I think this is the type of player that can grow. And this is what the Pelicans are betting on here when it comes to Bennedict Mathurin. There are very real examples of score-first downhill wings becoming much better playmakers later on. And I think this is maybe the area that Bennedict Mathurin could grow the most in. I'm not expecting him to become a good defender next year. He can handle his own one-on-one, kind of, but he's a bad help defender, other areas like that. I'm not expecting that to change here. I don't expect Bennedict Mathurin to become a lead guard, but can he go from a guy that goes and gets his own shot to a bit of an advantage creator? Because look, as he is right now with the way that he plays and his limitations, he's not an advantage creator. An advantage creator is very different than like a pure point guard where you're just hoping they use their skills to create an advantage for you right now. You know, Mathurin averaged just 2.4 assists per game last season. It's 1.9 for his career. It's not great, you know, but there are examples of guys that have grown. DeMar DeRozan, and I don't think Mathurin's any of these players. Keep that in mind because I'm about to throw some names out here. But DeMar DeRozan was essentially an athletic scorer that attacked the rim, drew fouls, had a bit of a mid-range jumper that got better much later on, and you didn't want him to run your offense. 21, DeMar DeRozan averaged 1.8 assists. You know, at age 23, it was just 2.5, right? But then he learned how defenses reacted to his talent, his ability. In his age 28 season, DeMar DeRozan was averaging 5.2 assists. And when he was in San Antonio, that number jumped to 6.2, 5.6, 6.9 in his final season with the San Antonio Spurs. He never stopped being DeMar DeRozan in what he was doing. Instead, he got very comfortable with what he did, knew what he did well, and learned how defenses reacted to that. He learned where help defense was coming from. Where and when does a big man step up to try and contest him here? Where's the defender on the weak side? And what he should then precisely do. That's exactly what Bennedict Mathurin could do. You know, one of the hardest parts of becoming an advantage creator is generating the advantage in the first place. He does that a little bit. He gets downhill. He gets defenders on their heels and hopefully rotating, right? We talked about how he draws contact at such a high rate and gets to the line. Defenses have to react to him. So then he needs to learn what to do after those defenses react to him, just like DeMar DeRozan did. Look, Jaylen Brown is another kind of interesting example when to this. He averaged under an assist his rookie year. In year 3 for Jaylen Brown, it was just 1.4 assists. His entire offensive identity was built around, he's a better shooter, right? But using his athleticism, straight line, scoring, and he could shoot too, and that I think really helped. But over time, you could see him learn and process the defenses better, and all of a sudden making reads out of his straight line drives and functioning as a secondary creator. That's the goal here, I think, this coming season for Bennedict Mathurin, right? It's not just go do you and go and score. It's if the defense does put two at you, either draw the contact or make the right read, make the right pass. That's all it has to be. Anthony Edwards is another example, right? He steadily grew his assists over time. Different kind of player, different caliber of players, all of these guys here. But the same idea kind of applies. If you are elite at putting rim pressure, you can eventually become a playmaker if you're a player who learns how to manipulate the defense instead of merely attacking through it. Jimmy Butler has a history of this, right? Getting downhill, inviting contact, forcing the defenses to collapse, and then just make the right type of thing here. For Mathurin, it does not need to be complicated. You don't need to be this flashy playmaker or do what he played with Tyrese Halliburton, doing that sort of thing. You just need to be you, right? If a man rotates over to you, the low man steps up to contest your shot. Bennedict Mathurin beats his man. The corner defender steps in to try and take that away. Don't try and finish over two people. Just kick it out. Make the right read. When a big man steps up to take away the rim and leave a Zion Williamson, leave a Derek Queen out, hit them. Now, this needs to be on the coaches running a pick and roll with him too. And as Bennedict Mathurin drives, you need a roller there. So make sure that's happening here. But when you get downhill in a pick and roll and the center commits to you, dump it off to Queen. Dump it off to Zion Williamson or Yves Missi. We'll talk about Yves Missi next week, by the way. So that's all you have to really do here. He needs to shift his mindset a little bit from attacking to score and instead attacking to create. What that might be. It sounds similar, but there is a bit of a difference when it comes to that, I think. And it's a bit of a different mindset. And so that is something that Bennedict Mathurin needs to actively work on. And look, it also comes with you got to make decisions a little bit quicker. When you look at his passes, out of pick and rolls after line drives, he's in a bad spot because he's so committed and almost doesn't have a contingency plan here. You've got to process this quicker and figure out what's your bailout in a sense, for all of this. He's got to be able to find and know where those open teammates are. This is going to matter pretty significantly for the Pelicans this season. Zion needs touches. Queen needs touches. Jeremiah Fears needs reps and touches running an offense. DeJounte Murray is going to handle the ball too. Trey Murphy wants to handle the ball and is going to need shots. And now you factor in Bennedict Mathurin. It's crowded. But if Mathurin can get up to 4 assists per game as a secondary creator, that makes things a little bit better for everybody here. That means Derek Queen can get a dump-off pass in a pick and roll. Trey Murphy can get a corner three. Herb Jones can cut and he can find him. Fears, if he develops as a shooter, can be an outlet guy as well. All of a sudden, Mathurin stops being another guy that you've got to feed the ball to and suddenly becomes that secondary creator and opening things up and a guy that can bend and hurt a defense. There's a significant difference there when it comes to him as a player in that regard. As I said in the beginning, right, the Pelicans aren't betting that Bennedict Mathurin is suddenly going to become a superstar. He's not. That's very unlikely here, especially with the role. Whether he starts or not, he's not the number one guy. He's not the number two guy here. I think they're betting that at 24 years old, this is someone who can still grow. They know he can score. They know he can get downhill. Now can he add other things to his game? Because that's a big difference between Bennedict Mathurin as your six-man scorer or Bennedict Mathurin as a legitimately valuable offensive player, in my opinion. He can grow into this, and you've seen a couple of examples. I think DeMar DeRozan might be the best one, that a player with kind of score-first DNA can make that leap and grow and add to their game. And at $8 million, look, that's a bet that's worth taking. There's, while I don't love Mathurin as a player, and I don't, look, at $8 million, I like it. I don't really have any complaints about this. There's almost no risk to the Pelicans here. Now, if Mathurin takes a massive step forward, he's got to get paid. And that should impact the next move the Pelicans make, because this isn't official yet, because there's still more things to come. We've talked a little bit about that. I want to look at that a little bit more. Is it Jordan Poole? Is it Jordan Hawkins? Is it someone else that needs to go? There's an answer of what's going to happen, but there's also an answer of like what should happen. Are they the same thing? That's coming up here next in today's episode of Locked On Pelicans. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by FanDuel. Baseball fans, if you think you know who's hitting a homer today, FanDuel is giving you a free chance to call your shot with daily dingers. It's easy to play. Just make your free pick for who you think will hit a home run in their game. And if you're right, you're going to receive a profit boost to use on your next bet for a chance at extra winnings. And best of all, you can make a free pick every day throughout the MLB season. Daily dingers is another fun way to stay engaged with every day's game. So whether you're following your favorite team or keeping an eye on matchups across the league, every game has someone capable of going deep, and now you get the chance to make your prediction before first pitch. Sometimes it's a hitter who's been on a hot streak, a favorable pitching matchup, or even a ballpark that tends to give up home runs. Those are the things you want to be looking for first when making your daily dingers pick here. So are you ready to play your game today? Join all the action at FanDuel.com. That is FanDuel.com to play daily dingers and make your free pick on who's hitting a homer. Play ball and swing for the fences on FanDuel, an official partner of the MLB. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pelicans team. So please subscribe wherever you get your podcast. Join over 12,000 Pelicans fans on YouTube as well and become an everydayer. It means you listen Monday through Friday to the Locked On Pelicans podcast. And if you're an everydayer, let me know in the comments down below. Don't forget, you can watch us on the Gulf Coast Sports and Entertainment Network every weekday at 10:30 a.m. Same place you watch your Pelicans play. And if you're an everydayer, let me know. Who's going to go next? So there's more to this Bennedict Mathurin signing. You know, we talked about it in terms of the salary cap yesterday. As of now, the Pelicans, I have them before Mathurin at $5.8 million under the luxury tax. They're going to stay under the luxury tax. There's also some complications with the first apron where literally this will not fit because unlikely incentives, which don't count against the luxury tax unless they're hit, do count against the first apron. We don't need to get into all of that. It doesn't work as the deal is today. Also, it doesn't work because they have 15 people on the roster, and now they have 16 people on the roster. You can only have 15. Another move is coming. We talked about it 2 days ago on the show with Jake Fisher, hinting at September, early September, when players can get aggregated. Again, guys that were traded earlier in the offseason, you got to wait 60 days. They can be traded by themselves, or you can wait that period of time and you can combine their salary with somebody else's salary and move it. On that show 2 days ago, after Jake Fisher said this before the Mathurin trade, right? We told you it was probably going to be the Memphis Grizzlies. Makes the most sense. AJ Johnson was going to be in the mix along with somebody else. The Pelicans could easily move a Jordan Hawkins, bring that salary back or move one of them or something later and make this work. And it sounds like they have a deal in place. It sounds like a deal is already in place. We are just waiting for that date to hit, and then it'll go official. September 9th, I think is what it was. 6th, 7th, or 8th. I forget the exact date off the top of my head. That's what we're going to be looking for. I would not be shocked if you see a trade on that day or like immediately after that. And then the Mathurin signing becomes official and so on and so forth. I've seen a lot of people, by bringing in Bennedict Mathurin, who's a score-first guard, wonder if that should mean Jordan Poole should go. And I'm here to tell you right now, like, full stop, I don't think they should trade Jordan Poole. I don't think they should trade Jordan Poole at all as of today. It would depend on the trade, right? If you got Jason Tatum's like, I'll go to New Orleans, trade me. Yeah, I'll trade Jordan Poole, right? That's not realistic. Anyone that he could be moved for, say Miles Turner or somebody else, I don't think that the Pelicans should actually make that deal right now anymore here. And so here's why. It does have to do with Bennedict Mathurin. There are guys that are going to need to be paid next season. I have the cap sheet out with projections for the salary cap, the luxury tax, all of those things next year. Let's assume Zion Williamson has a good season. He guarantees his contract next year. He's at $44.8 million. DeJounte Murray doesn't get traded. He's at 30.75. Trey Murphy's $29 million. Herb Jones is just under 21. Jeremiah Fears is 8.2. Derek Queen, 5.6, and so on and so forth. I didn't mention Saddiq Bey. He's extension eligible. If they give him an extension, I kind of put his number at around $18 million a year. So if you add that in, when you add in the draft pick and you keep kind of everybody that they already have on this squad, all of a sudden, they're still over the salary cap by about $5 million. This is Jordan Poole falling off, and they have about $32 million to the luxury tax. Say Bennedict Mathurin has a good year. He grows as a playmaker. We said it's doable. He needs, let's call it $18 million a year. I don't think that's like an unreasonable number in the NBA anymore, right? He needs $18 million a year. Now, all of a sudden, you have 13 guys on your team, including a draft pick, with Mathurin getting a new contract and Bey getting a new contract and 2 open roster spots, and you're at $14.3 million in breathing room to the luxury tax. If you were to trade Jordan Poole for long-term money, how much, I got to pull it up. How much does Miles Turner make next year? Let's find this out together. He's on an extension that like kicks in, I think off the top of my head here. I want to say he's like 25 plus. Yeah, he is. Next year, he's at $27.8 million. So if you were to add that to this, right? I'll put it in 27. All of a sudden, the Pelicans are over the luxury tax by $13.4 million. Even if you were to add a guy that's $15 million, say you dump Jordan Poole, you only bring back, one player that's long-term. Say it's a $15 million, it's two $15 million players. One's expiring, one's on the books for next season too. That puts you into the luxury tax. Now we're talking about the same kind of cap crunch for this team again. That's kind of made them a little bit stuck this offseason, which is why they still need to figure out what to do to bring in a Bennedict Mathurin. It's not as simple as just signing Bennedict Mathurin for $8 million for what should be pretty straightforward. It is not. So I don't want to see them trade Jordan Poole for long-term money. The only way that I would trade him is if it's in expiring salary. Maybe you break it up into 2 $15 million players or so. That's fine. But are teams going to want to do that? Are they going to just trade you $34 million in expiring for $34 million in expiring? Like, that trade doesn't seem to accomplish anything for other teams here. It might be best to let his $34 million come off of the books. If you trade him and there's a guy making $20 million next year, that doesn't work if Bennedict Mathurin is going to get paid, right? We'll figure out what Saddiq Bey makes, but you would imagine they're going to give him an extension. And if Mathurin plays well, you made this investment in him this year. You don't want to see him walk and go to another team. So that's where this becomes a little bit difficult, I think, for New Orleans. There's a bet on Bennedict Mathurin, and if that bet hits, great. But then you got to pay him next year and years after that. And their books are still a little bit weird when it comes to things. They have flexibility. You could go into next offseason in a tremendous spot, truthfully. I've talked about that. Keep the books clean, rebuild around Fears and Queen. Like, you can do some things. They could have so many draft picks in the future if they do this a patient way. It's not exactly how they're operating right now. Not exactly how they've ever operated, truthfully. But that's why when I see people saying like, oh, there's a move coming for Jordan Poole and there's something, maybe not, like maybe, but that's very, very short-sighted. And if you were to add Miles Turner to this team and then still have to fill out the roster or have another player in it too, you might not be able to re-sign Bennedict Mathurin then, or you're going to have to trade a Saddiq Bey or a Herb Jones. And is that what you want? To me, the answer is no. So don't trade Jordan Poole to go with a marginal upgrade. Turner's different story. Like, he fits. I don't love him. I like him more than I used to. It's complicated. I got a complicated relationship with Miles Turner. So, like, on one hand, yeah, it makes sense, but then you've got to fit. You need to. It can't just be about this season, is I guess what I'm trying to say. It needs to be about thinking into the future too. This is what front offices do. They do think about like next year's cap, the year after that too, and how the moves they make now will impact that. So when I see people being like, "Oh, they're going to do this with Jordan Poole," you got to think beyond this season. You need to think into next season too, and that's what would concern me with any sort of trade like that. Now, that lowers your ceiling for this year. If you could make a meaningful upgraded center, even if Yves Missi is playing really well right now in the FIBA World Cup, you got to look at doing it. But also, you don't want to have to like blow up a team in a year because this team won't pay the luxury tax and your ceiling is still just like the 6th seed or something along those lines. Let me know what you think about the Hawkins versus Poole debate in the comments down below. So the answer is it's going to be Jordan Hawkins. The answer is also to me, it should be Jordan Hawkins, not Jordan Poole. Let me know what you think in the comments down below. Coming up next, we're still counting down the top 25 players. We're at 21. Finished this is the last of our first 5. Jonas Valanciunas. Coming up next. Today's episode of Locked On Pelicans brought to you by Odoo. Running a business shouldn't feel like you're trying to connect a bunch of systems that are just never designed to work together. One app for accounting, another for inventory, another for sales, and somehow none of them talk to each other. That's where Odoo comes in. Odoo is an all-in-one business management software that brings every part of your business together in one powerful platform. From sales and accounting to inventory and marketing, everything works in one place. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. The best organizations know that success isn't just about talent. It's about having everyone work towards the same goal. And that's true at sports, just like it is in business. When you look at the top front offices, the Oklahoma City Thunder, the Boston Celtics, all of them are about what is our vision, what is our goal, and let's do whatever it takes to get there. Everyone is working in conjunction with one another. There's no reactionary moves to that. There's an organization with a vision that sticks to it, and then you see the results of everyone working from the same playbook. Great organizations win because operations matter. That's why you should get Odoo. Odoo is one platform to manage, grow, and scale your business. Try for free at odoo.com/lockedon. That is odoo.com/lockedon to get started. And thank you for making Locked On Pelicans your first listen today and every day. We're here Monday through Friday, the #1 Pelicans podcast, covering everything you want to know about this Pels team. Please subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. Join us on YouTube as well. Become an everydayer and make Locked On Saints your second listen today. Ross was at the open practice at Yulman Stadium, breaking it all down. 21, the finishing out the week here, the last of our first 5 is Jonas Valanciunas, top 25 greatest players in New Orleans NBA history. I think Valanciunas is one of the more interesting players on this list because his Pelicans tenure had a super weird disconnect to me. He was super productive. He was super durable, which how many players can you actually say that about here? He liked being here too, right? He just gave the team a ton of the things that he needed. And yet, under David Griffin, the organization always seemed to be looking for not Jonas Valanciunas and the next center, looking for an upgrade, looking for a different archetype, somebody who could defend in space better, who could protect the rim better. And by the end of his time in New Orleans, there were times when he would start the game and then barely exist or play in the second half. And it's an interesting legacy for someone who was very good for New Orleans, very reliable for New Orleans, in my opinion, for 3 seasons here. Still short tenure, but a competitive playoff series as well. When he was acquired, it was immediately an upgrade, and he was an offensive center for the team that someone like Steven Adams just wasn't. You could give him the ball in the post. He could punish a mismatch. He could he could rebound at a high level, and he was just available. In his 3 years in New Orleans, 74 games, 79 games, 82 games. Just an Iron Man here. How many players can we say that about in New Orleans Pelicans or Hornets history, right? It's not very many. His first year here, too, had a huge signature game, November 29th, 2021 against the Clippers. Jonas Valanciunas, career 35-ish shooter from 3, traditional bruising center, guy you expect to play down low, goes 7 for 8 from three. 7 made threes against the Los Angeles Clippers. Finished with a career high 39 points, 15 rebounds, 3 assists, 2 steals. The Pelicans beat the Clippers 123-104. 7 for 8 for Jonas Valanciunas. He's got to be one of the strangest individual shooting performances in like Pelicans history. Willie Green, by the way, has another one of those. And that first season he was here probably ends up being his best. Pelicans make that late season push. They make the play-in. They beat San Antonio. They beat the Clippers. In that San Antonio game, Jonas Valanciunas, 22 points, 14 rebounds. And they get it into the first round. And in game 4 against Phoenix, Pelicans trying to even the series, 26 points, 15 boards for Jonas Valanciunas. He was solid, right? Just dependable. After year 1, you'd think, all right, this guy worked. You know, it might not be your center for the next 7-8 years, but he's a good starting center. And then what happened over the next couple of years, you know, looks really strange in hindsight, especially because once Valanciunas was gone, the past couple of years have just been like a glaring hole, right, at the center spot for New Orleans. This is, you could argue, what doomed the David Griffin tenure here. He kept producing, he kept playing, but there were times when the Pelicans just didn't believe in him. They wanted to move away from him. He was constantly in trade rumors. You know, they didn't like that he couldn't defend in space. So he'd start the game, and then in the second half, he'd be on the bench, and Larry Nance Jr. would be starting instead. They were looking for guys like Jared Allen. Wendell Carter Jr. for upgrades here could never figure it out. You know, there were many games he would start, play 10 minutes, and that's it. For a guy that was an Iron Man that gave you like a ton of production here, I think that's a little, like when we look back on this, there were some of y'all who believed it in the moment. And I was like, I get why they're looking to move him. In a vacuum, it makes sense, right? And then you never got that upgrade. And for the past couple of years, how rough has it been, truthfully, with the center spot for New Orleans? It's been abysmal. And they still are trying to kind of figure this out this year. I saw it in the comments of yesterday's show. How many of y'all said they're signing Mathurin? We need a center. We'll talk about Misi next week. He's playing well right now. Maybe he can fill that void. But they still need a center, and it has to do with Jonas Valanciunas not being here anymore. Where do you think Jonas Valanciunas should rank? I think 21's right for him. Let me know in the comments down below. That's going to do it for this episode of Locked On Pelicans, this week of Locked On Pelicans. As always, I'm your host, Jake Madison, at NOLA Jake on Twitter. This is the Locked On Pelicans podcast, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. See y'all on Monday.